Yeah, sure. I mean, I came to AI as a comms practitioner, right? So in global comms at Nike, the golf team wouldn't get along with the tennis team, and we needed to figure out what the story was there. At Weber Shandwick, many alumni here in the audience today, working with many companies from IBM to J&J, who are all trying to figure out, in this sea of sameness, how they can differentiate with a corporate narrative that feels truly ownable and authentic to them. And one of the things that I've seen companies do well when it comes to AI, well, there's a few key points. The first is standard setting, right? Which is to say we are now a data-driven organization. We see this all the time in different organizations where it's like, well, I got my media monitoring tool and I've got like a volume metric, or we hate to say it, but impressions metric, or all those other old school things, but I'm pretty much just going to do my job as I see fit. I'm going to pitch the media that I think is best. I'm going to put out the messages that I think with my gut instinct sounds best. And what I think from a standard setting perspective is so important is being able to use data to make decisions that we can all rally behind as objective proof of the bets we should make, and then proof that the bets are paying off. The second thing, to Joao's point, is to talk about strategy in a way that is very, very specific, right? I mean, I think we all know as communicators, everybody here is campaigning on being perceived as an innovative company. Everyone here is being perceived as a purposeful company, and I think we've all seen, whether it's your commitment to net zero or your embrace of R&D across your organization, you need to figure out what are the most authentic proof points, what are those core values, those distinctive positioning themes that truly feel like you can own, because then you can use those to train the AI system. And then, of course, the final bit of this is synthesizing, right? It's thinking about the data points that you need to pull in. This could be global media data. This could be elite paywall data like the Financial Times or Wall Street Journal. It could be regulatory, legislative, litigation data. And thinking about the data sources you need is really important because, as you all know with an LLM, it's all based upon what's in the model. And so no matter how precisely you comb that model, the power is in the raw material that you're sourcing insight from. And so if you can be really specific in terms of setting a standard that your organization is now data-driven and making decisions with the objective proof. Second, making sure that you have a very specific strategy that you're using to shape the AI system to sharpen your messages and improve your storytelling and quantify your editorial calendar. And most importantly, figuring out the data sources that you're going to pull from in order to make sure that the information you're getting is in fact accurate. Well, I think it's important to recognize that AI can prove the impact of communications like never before. A big reason that I moved from being a practitioner to a founder was that I had this idea that wouldn't it be amazing in that every quarterly earnings script you'd have a reputation score, because reputation is 85% of a company's value. You've all seen that HBR study. So wouldn't it be amazing if we could quantify the impact? And for the longest time, communications teams have walked into a room with sales and marketing and IR, and they haven't necessarily been able to quantify their impact. Sales has the revenue numbers, marketing has all their metrics about the amount of people that saw the billboard, IR can say the stock price is good, and the comms person says, look at this great piece in the Financial Times. Yeah. And what I think is really encouraging about what Joao was talking about is being able to quantify the impact of a strategy vis-a-vis your competitive set, and being able to prove impact over time. Now, of course, there's static metrics like surveys that continue to be valuable, particularly on audience analysis that's hard to get to. But for the first time, we're able to show the aggregate impact of everything we're doing, from CSR commitments to messaging to executive moments to earnings calls. So a few examples that I've seen go quite well. I'm from Boston, born and raised, so if you guys need recommendations on restaurants or rotaries, I'm happy to make advice. But a great company here in Boston is called Easy Cater. Easy Cater started out as a catering company, literally started by a grandmother, and it's close to being one of the hot tech IPOs of the next year. Easy Cater is trying to make a transition from being a catering platform that your mom and pop sandwich shop would use to being seen as this entire Workday-like platform for large enterprises. And so they're using AI to figure out, okay, what does our competitive set look like now? It's no longer like DoorDash, maybe it's more like Salesforce. And so we need to map certain topics like AI agents and GenAI interfaces for our customers to understand the best way to position our new innovative offerings to be perceived as a tech company so that their IPO pops off. Another example would be a big consulting firm. We work with KPMG. They are called in to do audits all the time. And so they're using AI and some of the systems that we provide, though not entirely, to quantify trust. They want to be able to look through a financial statement or an operational footprint and understand to what degree there are, labor concerns, sourcing concerns, sustainability concerns, so that they can have, aside from financial metrics, a very precise understanding of how trustworthy that company is. So there's a bunch of different examples out there, but fundamentally it starts with the communications team, to Joao's point, embracing measurement as a tool for action. I think it's so interesting how the AI discussion is like living in a parallel world, I might say, between the creative and the strategic use cases. So many of us in the room, we interact with AI systems in a creative context. We interact with GenAI, which is good at predicting the next pixel and the next word and the next note or the next frame of video. And that's because it's vectorizing, it's figuring out through data points where that word is closest to the next word, right? And I think it's so interesting where in my world, I think a lot about discriminative AI, which is all about tagging and labeling. Is it Amazon the company or Amazon the rainforest? Nike the company or Nike the shoes? Starbucks the company, Starbucks that you're ordering? And what I think is going to be so important is using the combination of those two to figure out where the human voice continues to persist as we adopt AI in this discussion. So using discriminative AI, we might be able to determine whether or not that idea truly did come from a human being, just like we can assess whether or not a college essay was written by a robot or a student at this point. But I think this has huge implications for corporate communications because we exist in this sea of sameness, right? What company out there hasn't committed to going net zero by 2035 or 2050? No. The key thing is to be highly specific with an authentic, ownable proof point. Joao, you certainly talked to me about this a lot, with how we are pursuing that widely aspired to goal. Yeah. And only human beings can make a decision in terms of how to do that. I wouldn't trust AI at this point to differentiate me. It would just give me options to differentiate. And it's so important with what you're saying to understand that maybe you're getting more creative output, but you also have to have that spider sense in the back of your head that maybe I'm just being pushed in the same direction as everyone else. Rather than a framework, I think about it as an opportunity. Put it this way, I'm a practitioner in comms who failed algebra like many of you in this room. Unlike many of you in this room, I failed it like 4 times in a row, and then I went on to a D- in geometry. So if I can work in this space, I'm quite confident almost anybody could. I think what's very exciting for me is for the longest time, communications hasn't necessarily been seen as the vanguard of innovation, let alone the most data-driven function. And with AI, because of how customizable it is, I would argue, and I've seen, that communications teams are the leading function when it comes to adopting the tangible end-to-end business uses of AI. Whether that is training the key specific topics of your corporate narrative, figuring out what data sources you can use to measure your core values on a day-to-day basis, not an individual point in time, and having real-time feedback both before you put a message out into the world and afterwards to understand the impact that you're making. Where I see hesitancy is that for the longest time, communications folks have been afraid of being graded, right? Our metric of success is like land that piece, get a quote in the above the fold sort of rank, and we now have an opportunity to go after what we all are hoping to do as communicators, which is fewer, deeper storylines, higher quality, higher impact, and less about the volume bazooka out there. When it comes to concerns, there are many. It's the first time that I had trained an AI system was only a few years ago, and I saw firsthand the bias. When you click yes, no, and you're training a topic, whether it's recognizing a press release or thought leadership, or figuring out whether or not this is actually about vaccine giveaways or cell therapy in the biotech world, that can really give folks an opportunity to bias the data. That's why it's so important to have a back-end system where you're seeing every individual data point, like literally articles, social media posts, regulatory documents, so you can be sure that the insights that you're getting are grounded in real hard truths and not hallucinations. Proving your impact, helping your teams operate more efficiently is absolutely critical, but I think even better, what I've seen is data and AI deployed correctly can be a convening force, can put comms at the center of the table, and whether it's marketing, investor relations, operations, or sales, give you a leadership role with objective proof for the why behind the what that you're recommending.